Welcome to the Ringer WNBA show. I'm Seerat Sohi, as always, and I am joined today by Megan Gauer, her HoopStats Bracketology expert. And Megan, my head is spinning. The NCAA selection committee fed us. They have given us so many potential high stakes, high voltage, both in the tactical and psychological realm of matchups. We have, I think the first thing that stands out to me is a potential player of the year matchup between Sarah Strong and Mikayla Blakes in the Elite Eight in Regional 1. UConn got the 1 seed. If you've been paying attention to what the committee has been doing, you're probably not surprised by that at all. You got a potential Duke LSU rematch, the Kara Flage-Amara Cup running back matchup, potentially a Duke revenge game. Who knows? We're going to get into all of that. I think we're trying to process all of it. Megan, welcome to the show. What were your initial thoughts when the bracket came out?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And it's always so hard to process it all at once. It's like, all right, there's just so much information so quickly. But I think there's a lot of, like you said, really exciting matchups in here that are going to be fun to play out. I mean, the potential down the road matchups that you brought up, some first round matchups that are really, really exciting as well. So I'm excited to get into it and break it all down here.
Well, let me ask you first, what was your biggest surprise?
I think my biggest surprise was just Tennessee falling to a 10. I think there was a lot of questions about, what do you do with this Tennessee team that's got 5 quad 1 wins, but also lost 7 games straight to end the regular season. And it's just well, they're going to be in, but where are they going to be? I think a lot of the people in the bracketology realm had them on the 8 line, and they fell all the way to a 10, which I think just speaks to what the committee saw from them down the stretch here.
The committee does seem to favor recency more so as well, so they're not necessarily going to take those early wins into account, even though I do feel like Tennessee front-loaded their schedule, even though they are in the SEC and they won a lot of those tough non-conference games. They don't care, which is fair. I mean, I do think it's they're a really hard team to get a grasp of. They might be my biggest tournament X factor, if you want to call it that, because it's really hard to know what to make of them. They are playing NC State, who they actually lost to in the first game of the season. So I think it'll be a good measuring stick from where they were at the beginning of the season to now, but they might have actually been in a better spot in the beginning of the season, because this is a team that's just been shrouded in controversy. I think the history of the program and, just the shadow of Pat Summitt looms so large. There's a good deal of palace intrigue around Kim Caldwell and her job status. Her AD, Danny White, gave her a vote of confidence after, a pretty tough month, right? They had 2 blowout losses to South Carolina, and then the one, if you're a Lady Vols fan, that you just can't live with is UConn. She famously tells the media that she feels like her team has a lot of quit in them. I personally thought that was sort of and you can jump in whenever you want. I'm just going to kind of, we haven't talked about Tennessee in a while, but I personally felt like Tennessee, Kim Caldwell doing that to me felt like a coach that is a little bit unpolished with the media, trying to offer her players an opportunity to take responsibility, which then got misconstrued as her not taking accountability for the program. And it only got worse from there. I think that there's a level at which maybe that got into their psyches. They've gone 1 for 8 since. They've lost 7 straight games. They were an early out in the SEC tournament. And I think the question really just becomes, is Tennessee going to win another game this season, or is Westmore going to put them out of their misery?
Yeah, I think just maybe if Tennessee had lost 7 games quietly at the end of the regular season, they would have been that 8 seed that a lot of people thought they would be. But it, like you said, it's just been a disaster. There's no other way to put it down the stretch. And the interviews with Caldwell, and I think maybe some of that, like you said, just comes from this is being her, only second season in a high profile job where you have national media and this much attention on you. And there's obviously a lot of attention on Tennessee, but it's just there's been so many weird things going on between that. Then you had Jasmine Barker sit out a game, and then it's just been like a mess, and then no one really knows what's going on. And you see a way where like maybe this team takes this like week and a half off from after the SEC tournament and figures it out and like goes and wins a game, or they just like go out in the first round, and maybe that's better for everyone.
Well, you had Kaya Wynn leaving on senior night after not getting to play. You had then Tess Darby, a senior from last year, kind of, her name ended up in it, and her sort of kind of not, I wouldn't say defending Caldwell as much as putting her, giving her 2 cents, which is that she loved the coaching staff and she doesn't think that, toughness is abuse. Then you had Janiah Barker, to your point, get benched. You had Talasia Cooper get benched in the SEC tournament. And this is a team that had 5 freshmen coming in this season. They had 7 seniors graduating. They also brought in Janiah, Nia Robertson, and Jersey Wolfenbarger as transfer portal additions. And I wonder if it was just too much at once, just too much birthday. Like you had a great first season. Now you're like up in everybody's. You're getting everybody's attention in the transfer portal, and maybe with the pace of the transfer portal now, you make some decisions that maybe if you had a couple days to think it through. Like I think about the Janiah Parker edition, right? And on some level, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, okay, she's somebody who is extremely athletic, shot blocker, offensive rebounder, is definitely a play creator on the defensive end. That all makes sense in Kim Caldwell's system. She also loves playing in the paint, away from the rim, not shooting. Like, she shoots from just about anywhere, but, she loves that midi, and she loves being a little bit more methodical. She loves to over dribble a little bit, right? And I don't know. And it's, to your point about the fact that maybe if this happened quietly, I don't know that Tennessee is the first team to get caught up in the pace and the hype of the transfer portal, but I do think that they are the most popular to do it on a team that has Pat Summitt. Just like the expectations are just like Kelly Harper went through this, Holly Warlick before her went through this. It sets a standard that I'm not even sure Pat would have lived up to, because the mythology of Pat Summitt has become bigger than the human being herself, who was just a person trying to figure things out. And it's just I don't know. It's just it's a very interesting situation, and I feel like it does seem like Kim Caldwell's job is safe this season. I'm curious what you think about the first 2 potential games that they got. NC State, a team that has a lot of guards to potentially break that press, but then Michigan, a team that I think like definitely like both teams will run with Tennessee and like let them play that system. Like none of those teams really want to be in the half court. I think though, if they can get past NC State, maybe with Michigan, I feel like some of the issues they've been having are due to the fact that they don't really have the table setting, I'm going to break this press point guard. Like, I feel like I think about how they lost to Vanderbilt and they were just disorganized and they got kind of destroyed by the quickness of Vandy's full court press. I could almost see a similar thing happening if that's the second round matchup.
Yeah, I agree. If they get through NC State, which feels like a big if, but if they do, Michigan is.
But to me, that's a harder game, though.
Yeah, style-wise, I think it is a harder game for them because I think Michigan, exactly like you said, Vanderbilt disrupted them that press. If you go back to that like Michigan-UConn game way back in November, that game ended up being close, but UConn like was up 20 at the half with disrupting Michigan with their press, and they've really struggled with it, I think, in periods throughout the season. So you get in a situation with Tennessee where they're going to have that disruptiveness, and then if Tennessee can make some threes, like Michigan can make the threes on the other end. But I think there's a potential for an upset there if Tennessee can figure it out enough to get there.
Yeah, it all kind of depends. Like, cause like that guard, situation with NC State, it don't like Zoe Brooks feels like kind of like the perfect Nia Robertson defender in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know. I think it's going to be very, really interesting, but that's obviously a matchup. I think that that's the one that I have circled out of like the first and the second round. Like were there any other second round matchups that you kind of like potential second round matchups that you have circled?
That one for sure. I would say even going to just like first round back in Fort Worth 1, I'm like really intrigued by Notre Dame Fairfield in the first round because Fairfield is a team, I think their only real weakness is that they don't really have the strong front court presence. And you get Notre Dame. I think that's like the perfect matchup for if you're looking at Fairfield and trying to see if they can win a game. Like Notre Dame has no front court this year. That's been their biggest issue as well. And you have Hannah Hidalgo, so that's its own
appointment television.
Yeah, exactly. Appointment television, and its own thing to overcome because you have to find a way to slow her down. But I just think that's a great matchup for Fairfield in terms of if you look at all the 6 seeds and who do you have the best chance against, and I think Notre Dame is up there for them.
Yeah, for sure. And then if Fairfield is also just so well coached as well. I feel like that can get you a long way, especially against a team like Notre Dame that does struggle to get into its offense when you get the ball out of Hannah's hands. I'd be kind of curious what happens there. If they do make it past Fairfield, Ohio State versus Notre Dame would be a really fun matchup with Jeloni Cambridge and Hannah Hidalgo basically like doing the Spider-Man meme at each other.
Yeah, if Notre Dame makes it past, I do think that's a great second round game with those two. Like you said, that point guard matchup is going to be fantastic if we get it.
Yeah, and then we got, this is what I'm saying with the committee just given with both hands. The Sweet 16 could potentially have Duke playing LSU again in what was one of the most electric matchups, especially that fourth quarter where Flau'jae Johnson went off, hit a step back 3 in the midst of a run, screamed at Carol Lawson. If you guys don't know, there's a lot of background there. There's a beef history being waiting to be written on that one, where Flau'jae didn't feel like she got enough playing time with AmeriCup, and Carol Lawson was, of course, the coach. And it was kind of a game that she had circled on her calendar. And then you also have SC versus Oklahoma as well, where Aaliyah Chavez, like that, she went off in that overtime, and it was probably her first like introduction to the national stage as a college player, hitting 5 threes in overtime and just putting South Carolina away in a game where they frankly just stopped playing defense. So those are like just 2 revenge games that I have circled, because Duke is just such a different team than it was at that time. That was probably the low point of their season, and now they've won the ACC title. They figured out a lot rotationally. I think Toby Fournier has just like turned herself into an all defensive player. Delaney Thomas has really come along. Tiana Mayer has become just the point guard that like Carol Lawson can actually trust. And then on the SC side, I just know Raven Johnson wants another shot at that. I know she wants another shot at guarding Chavez.
Yeah, the Duke team, like you said, is just such a different team than they were in the first half of the season. They really did not have it together to start the year. It was a surprising start from them, right? Like they'd lost a whole bunch of games, figured it out as they got into ACC play, but now this is a team that I think, honestly, if you're talking about other surprises, I was a little surprised that they were a 3. I kind of thought they were going to get the 2 after winning the ACC. But they're the 3, and they get that rematch with LSU, and they know they lost that game earlier in the season, and they have a chip on their shoulder now with the seed.
Yeah, for sure. I was surprised by that too, because I said earlier that the committee seems to favor, recency, right? If you look at things recently, Duke is definitely a 2 seed. And I think on the flip side, I have a lot of questions about Michigan being a 2 seed, especially with the way they've lost some of these games, right? Like, blown out by Vanderbilt, blown out by Iowa twice, one of them in the Big 10 tournament, in similar fashions too, where you can pinpoint exactly what their weaknesses are. Whereas Duke, I honestly feel like, they've got a pretty difficult path, but that to me, they to me could be an Elite 8 team. So that one I just didn't really understand that one. Did you like as somebody who actually understands bracketology a lot better than I do, if you were to kind of put yourself in the seat of the committee and try to justify that, what would you say?
Yeah, I think it must have come down to like overall body of work and not just focusing on the recency, because like Duke did have all those losses at the end. And like particularly that South Florida loss probably hurt them. If you're looking at like just the 2 resumes stacked next to each other, like Michigan doesn't have that kind of loss that's outside of the top handful of seed lines or whatnot. So I think that probably hurt Duke overall. But for me, I agree on Michigan. Just it felt like they never really got the big one. Like they've been in some of these big games, but like they didn't beat UConn, they didn't beat Vanderbilt. You didn't beat UCLA. You didn't beat Iowa. Like they didn't get any of the big games that they had.
Yeah, like they're so squarely to me just like the third best team in the Big Ten.
Right.
It's just like really surprising to me that they got a 2 seed. I feel like I know exactly who they are, and I know that they are just a classic three seed. I will say though that this does give Duke a really interesting opportunity if they go on a deep run, make the Final Four, and I feel like they would have a really tough matchup potentially against UCLA to get there. Although if I think about a team that could defensively muck it up against that type of front line, it probably is Duke, albeit they would definitely have some size issues. That is a matchup we can talk later. But a 3 seed has only ever won the NCAA title once. It was actually LSU back in the Angel Reese year. So there's potentially an opportunity there for Duke to make their own kind of history. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think that I think we have seen a lot of growth and more parity amongst like this sort of like, if you look at the sort of top 5 to like top 15 teams in the NCAA, they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. They still like, other than Vandy, I don't feel like anybody has really cracked it in a real way. So I don't think we're in the, like, I feel like we're a year away from like real March Madness upsets. But I think as I was looking at this whole field and I was trying to think, and I'm curious what you think about this, like who has the easiest path for a number 1 seed and who has the hardest path? I feel like I don't know, maybe I need to talk it through, but I don't feel like there's one clear, like really tough path, and I don't think there's one clear that's like the easiest. Like I think it's all pretty, fairly like everybody's got tough matchups, like if you're South Carolina, like you got Oklahoma, then Iowa. If you're Texas, like you're in, like Texas is in a very interesting field there with like Kentucky and who's there? Like they have Louisville in there as
Louisville,
well.
West Virginia, which is
West Virginia.
Texas West Virginia game could be very interesting, but low scoring, but very interesting.
Oh my gosh.
No, I agree though. It does feel like it's a pretty balanced bracket, and I don't often and feel like get it and feel that way. But I do. I think when you look at this, it's just there's a lot of. I think the top 4 seeds in each region are tough. Like I don't think there's any that I'm like they don't belong there. They're like an easy out. So I think that helps. But I think there's tough paths for everyone, and like no one has like a really easy draw or like an obnoxiously hard draw. I do think UCLA got a pretty tough draw just in having like LSU as a team. I think he could easily make the Final Four. Duke, like we just said, like is probably underseeded, like probably should have been a 2. So then now you've got 2 seeds in your region. So I do think they got a little bit of a tough draw there too. And even Ole Miss as if they're 5, like that's an Ole Miss team that's playing really well right now.
I mean, even if they don't beat you, they'll beat the crap out of you.
Yeah.
Like they're UCLA. Well, it's interesting. Like the biggest issue that UCLA has is like what's that stat that they're basically like 0-10 or something against SEC teams? And I don't know what the exact stat is, but they haven't beaten SEC team in a while. They don't do well against SEC teams, and now they're facing potentially facing a bunch of SEC teams on their way to a potential Final Four. The LSU matchup is intriguing to me because I think that LSU is so guard heavy this season. Like they are not like the traditional sort of like what we expect, like the Angel Reese and Nisa Morrow, like the generational rebounder. They're more rebounding by committee. I just feel like for this particular LSU team, I just feel like you'd be asking a lot of like Grace Knox and Joyner and stuff like that, right? I think there's a pathway as well, especially if you can get Lauren Betts potentially into some foul trouble, but it does feel like they win the matchup battle in that one, even though it is like you look at that field and you're like, oh gosh, like that's really difficult.
Yeah, that is true. They don't have like that elite post presence that they've had in prior years, and that gives UCLA a little bit of a better path there just because Lauren Betts, like you said, is so hard to match up with. And if you don't have that kind of presence in your front court, it makes it really hard to compete with her. So I do think it's interesting too that like the hurdle for UCLA is that they haven't been an SEC team because it's like there is such a stark difference in my opinion between like SEC style basketball and Big Ten, because Big Ten is very like offense heavy. It's not a lot of like great defenses, but they score a lot. Or when you get to the SEC, in South Carolina, Texas, Ole Miss, like they're gonna slow you down. The defense is going to be intense, and Duke kind of falls into that mold too. So UCLA in a situation where they've got a lot of those teams that kind of fit that mold in their bracket. That is not what they typically see in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it is interesting. Speaking of Big Ten versus SEC, I'm curious what you make of a potential Iowa versus Georgia second round matchup.
It's like polar opposite styles. So there's
Right?
that.
Yeah.
And I mean, Coach Abe at Georgia has just always been able to get her team, like, it's never an easy out. I don't care when you play them in the tournament, it's never an easy out. So I think that's a tough matchup for an Iowa team that probably has not seen a team that's played defense like that on them this season, or if they did, that I'm forgetting about in like the early season. It's been a while. So I think that's going to be a tough adjustment from Iowa, just to see, like, how do you keep your composure and play against a team like that when it's not something you've seen all season.
Is there anybody that comes close in the Big Ten to how Georgia plays, you think?
No, not really.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, no. It's really physical. It's really, like, you're gonna slow you down. I
Yeah.
can't think of anyone in the Big Ten that mirrors that style.
Iowa can get physical. I think what was the game where Ava Hayden was really, I think Iowa versus Michigan, right? Like Ava Hayden and Sofa Kanich were really getting into it.
Mhm.
And I think it was one of those moments where Ava Hayden basically had to either decide, like, I'm going to shrink against this physicality, or I'm not going to let it bother me, or even better, I'm going to let it piss me off and channel that anger into, I think it was an 8-point fourth quarter. I think that she's shown that ability to level up to physicality. And this Iowa team is pretty defensively minded as well. Like, I think you could see Hannah Stuelke potentially having a similar arc where maybe she gets into her head at the beginning, but eventually kind of finds a way around it. Journey Houston as well. I think like Chit Chat Wright, Kylie Feuerbach, like all of them are really strong defensive players. Like maybe it's funny because I think when you like it is stylistically different how they play defense, but I think like this is another like potentially really like low scoring slug it out matchup. And I think traditionally you favor like the SEC team there, but I think it'll kind of tell us a lot about Iowa's toughness if they're able to, squeeze through and make the Sweet 16.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, this is not the Caitlin Clark Iowa teams that, like, had that score and that made up for, like, a lackluster defense at times. Like, this is a much better defense than those teams had, because they don't have that Caitlin Clark, like, player to go out there and score 40 points, and they've been able to figure it out without that, and get right back to kind of the same place she had them in terms of seating and everything else. So it will be interesting. And
Yeah.
like,
Their key is always just being able to stick to that high low. And like they've become pretty good this season about being disciplined about it, even when teams are physical with them. But yeah, you're right though. It is a very different test. So I think it'll be a really interesting matchup.
yeah, that one should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. I feel like this is a moment that I've been waiting for. We're getting a potential player of the year matchup in the Elite Eight, in the regional round one. Like all season, all we've been talking about. Sarah Strong versus Mikayla Blakes. No reference point to be able to really have a fair conversation about it, because you have one player who is taking a program that has never really been on the map and putting it on the map, and she's carrying a ton of usage in Mikayla Blakes while also leading the nation in scoring, also putting up 30 points a game in the gauntlet of the SEC while doing it efficiently, like winning these really key like program changing wins for Vanderbilt, beating a interstate rival in Tennessee, really becoming the most popular team, or the most impressive team in Tennessee. And then you have Sarah Strong, who is the perfect player on the perfect team that is chasing perfection. And it's all smooth and beautiful because she has a ton of players around her. But at the same time, when she's not on the court, you do have your moments where you realize, oh, UConn does rely on her quite a bit. And I don't know what you can say about her at this point that would even feel hyperbolic. Like, number one pick any year. If she could declare for the draft this year, she'd be the number one pick. She's a generational talent. There's not a single thing that she's bad at. She's a 3-level scorer. She could be the first player since Aaliyah Boston to win a Naismith National Player of the Year award and a Defensive Player of the Year award. She can play pretty much any position. She can guard any position. She can do literally anything on the court, and she sees it faster than anybody else. She shocks opponents with her intelligence and actually truly how quick she is, despite how it seems like, it seems like she's moving slowly, but she's just slowing the game down. And she kind of has that Jokic, like the Jokic hands or like the Chelsea hands, like just like I will actually like I have incredible agility with those things, even though I don't necessarily seem like it. Two stylistically very different players. This is also the UConn Bowl with Shea Ralph, former UConn player who was an assistant coach under Gino. So she'll be taking him on. I think that's just like such an exciting thing to be able to do in your career as well. So that's really cool. But yeah, I'm just really, really excited for this matchup. But I do believe that some of the awards, like I don't know which one, I think maybe the Wooden Award, like you don't actually vote on it until like later in the tournament. So I wonder if it'll be late enough in the tournament for it to figure into people's voting.
Yeah, I think that'll be really interesting, and, like, that potential matchup, I think, has, like, every writer, like, salivating. It's just, like, there's so many storylines coming out of it, especially with that National Player of the Year battle, because you have Blakes, who obviously is, like, leading the country in scoring and does everything for Vanderbilt, and then, I mean, I think Sarah Strong, when all is said and done, might be the best player to ever come out of UConn, and that's, like, kind of crazy to say, but not crazy to say. Like, I think a lot of people are saying it, and that obviously comes with comparisons to Stewie and Maya Moore and a whole lot of players that have done a lot of crazy things in their careers. So it's such a fun matchup from that perspective. And then the coaching matchup, but then also just like two stylistically very different basketball teams too. And that like you've got a Vanderbilt system that really runs through Mikayla Blake's, and like that is who they want to get to the rim and who they want to shoot the basketball. And then a UConn system that's pretty balanced, despite the fact that you have Sarah Strong and AZ Fudd. Like there's a pretty balanced attack from UConn, and I think it'll just be a fascinating matchup to get those two up against each other.
I wonder how they guard Mikayla Blake's. One of the questions I've also been asking myself ahead of Selection Sunday is, like, how does the stage get set for another potential breakout star in women's college basketball? And I think that there's no better way to announce yourself than beating an undefeated team in the Elite Eight on your way to the Final Four. Like, those are the types of things, like, it kind of reminds me of, like, Juju Watkins versus Stanford, right? Like, things like that where like that really puts you on the national stage. And Mikayla Blake's, for people like you and I, she is a superstar. She's been doing these things for a very long time. She's pretty much an unguardable player. But I think that if they make it to the Elite Eight, and man, even if they lose, but it's like, Mikayla Blake's has like one of those nights where she just decides to go for like 36. She could also potentially be coming in with like, she's had multiple 30-game win streaks. So, as a sort of meta conversation, I do start to think about like, okay, is this when the world finds out? Is this like a game where she can potentially go crazy? Because when she's on like that, it's really hard to do anything with her. And I think it's going to really stress test UConn's defense, because they're going to play potentially Iowa State, which is going to be like a fun game with like Audie Crooks and stuff. I just don't think that's a difficult matchup for them, because like the key with Iowa State is most teams have to double Audie Crooks. UConn's probably not going to have to double her. And they're going to be able to just run AZ off of screen after screen after screen and just like punish, their defensive gaps and stuff. So that like just feels like an easy win for them, not to like look ahead too much. Then sorry, who is it again? Like, I'm trying to remember who would
North
they be?
Carolina or Maryland, I think, are the 4 or 5.
Yeah, like, all right, man. Like, okay, like we not worried about it. I'm not worried about it at all. Yeah, like I think that could, like, it's like we've been waiting for UConn to have to play real games again since like December. So like, I mean, obviously, and like those will be real games. So I do look forward to that. But that's like just the one I have circled on my calendar, like ahead of everything else. That is my number one game of the season. It's like appointment viewing. I think that you have two coaches that like really know each other. So the way that they game plan for each other and the mind games and like the tactical stuff, I think is just going to be really interesting. Like, yeah, it's just going to be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be so much fun, and it's like it's so hard not to circle that game because, like, yeah, maybe they both won't be there, but like it's such a exciting potential matchup, and like
it's a fun coaching matchup. Like, it makes you, it's like obviously, like, Gino has the advantages of being, he's literally Gino Auriemma. Don't think I need to tell you his resume. But at the same time, it's like Shea Ralph knows how he coaches. Does he know how Shea Ralph coaches? Or is it so much that, like, everything she has gotten, she has learned, from that program to the point where, like, he is in her brain and he knows what she's going to be thinking as well. It's like that part of it is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And the flip side too, like, she probably knows exactly what he's going to be thinking from, like, being a part of that staff for so long and playing for him and, like, everything else. Like, there's just so much history there.
Yeah, so much. And, like, Mikayla Blakes too is, like, a really interesting player in that I think that she kind of like fits into, like, a lot of how UConn would play. I think it's just hilarious that Gino spawned a coach to the SEC and to Tennessee in particular to haunt the Lady Bulls. Like,
I never thought about it that way, but that's really funny now. It's like, okay, now Tennessee is not the best program in Tennessee anymore, and it's actually coached by an old Husky.
Yeah, like, that is insult to injury for Tennessee fans. Like, that is not fun. Yeah. All right, Megan, is there any, before I let you go, is there anything else you wanted to talk about from, the bracket being released?
I don't think so. I'm just excited to get to these games.
Me too. It'll be a good time. Me too. Well, thank you so much for joining the show. Follow her hoop stats. I think Megan is one of the best bracketologists out there. Her hoop stats in general, I think, if you want to dig into the really analytical stuff, if you like to be a sicko like I am, I get a lot of my information from them. I'm putting out a piece soon where I'm sure I'll be citing her hoop stats for specifically Mikayla Blake's efficiency numbers, her big like efficiency, things like that. They have a really deep historical database as well, and they're building out more. And I think it's just, like, great to see stuff like that in women's hoops, like coming from covering the NBA, where you can track, like, the speed of somebody's movement. I think those things are still being built out in women's sports, especially college basketball as well. So it's just such a great resource. And, if you're, building out your bracket and you're trying to, like, get really in the weeds, it's a really good resource.
Yeah, for numbers nerds like myself, it is so much fun to be able to have that level of information at your fingertips.
Yeah, I get lost in wormholes with it sometimes too, where I'm like, oh my God, okay, you're in way too deep. Like, you just gotta write this thing, or, like, just move on to the next. But it's just so fun. So yeah, definitely appreciate all the work you guys do. Thank you for hopping on. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to Chris Sutton for producing, and we will be back very soon to talk more March Madness previews.